My name's Ryan. I'm 33, and I've always been the invisible one in my family. Not the failure, not the golden child, just skipped over. My younger sister Emily, on the other hand, could fart in a wine glass and my family would swirl it around and call it a fine vintage. She's 3 years younger than me, blonde, loud, and has a knack for making every gathering orbit around her. And my parents? They're practically her press agents. So when our extended family decided to host a full-blown reunion, the first in nearly a decade, I knew what to expect. Awkward hugs, passive-aggressive jabs, and the usual backhanded compliments disguised as support. I told myself it didn't matter. I had my own life, my own business, and friends who actually liked me. But when my cousin Mark messaged saying the whole event was being held at a fancy lakefront property in upstate New York and everyone was expected to be there, I decided, for reasons I still don't fully understand, to go. Maybe some part of me hoped it would be different. Maybe I just wanted to prove to myself that their approval didn't matter. I arrived late Saturday afternoon, driving my own car, the one I paid off myself without any handouts. As I pulled up, I saw the rental house was massive. 3 stories, big wraparound porch, and a view of the lake straight out of a postcard. The kind of place people pretend they just found on Airbnb when really it was booked 8 months in advance and funded by a shared Venmo spreadsheet. I parked around the side, grabbed the gift basket I brought, locally sourced, neatly arranged, I have class, even if they don't see it, and walked in. I barely had time to set the basket down before I was ambushed by shrill laughter and my Aunt Rachel's booming voice. "Ryan, look at you. Still quiet, huh?" Then she waved over her shoulder, yelling, "Emily's here too. You have to hear what she did at her firm last month." That was the tone for the weekend. Emily was thriving, radiant, and truly the one who kept the family legacy alive, whatever that meant. She worked in public relations for a beauty brand, lived in a downtown condo, and had recently posted a #grindset photo of herself sipping matcha on a balcony, and that, apparently, made her the reincarnation of Eleanor Roosevelt. I kept a polite smile, nodded, made conversation when asked, usually about tech stuff they didn't understand but pretended to. My Uncle Jack said, "Still doing that computer stuff?" When I mentioned I ran a software consultancy with 5 full-time employees. He blinked like I just told him I made money trading Pokemon cards. Emily walked by 2 minutes later, said she'd helped rebrand a cruelty-free toner, and 3 people clapped. I stayed quiet. I always do. By Saturday night, we were gathered around for dinner in the massive dining room. They went all out, catered buffet, white tablecloths. Someone even brought a karaoke machine for after-dinner fun. I sat near the end of the table, next to my cousin Liam, who was too busy texting his girlfriend to notice anyone else. Across the table, Emily was holding court like she was running for local office. Then, midway through the meal, Uncle Jack stood up and tapped his wine glass with a butter knife. "Everyone," he said, "can I have your attention?" The room hushed. Jack raised his glass and grinned. "Let's all take a moment to thank Emily, the one who actually made something of herself." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Emily beamed, did that fake "stop it" motion with her hand, and my mother, without missing a beat, added, "We're just so proud." She's always had that special spark. A few scattered claps, a smirk from my dad, a quiet snort from someone I couldn't see, and not a single eye turned to me. Not one. I sat there for a full beat, then calmly set my fork down. My heart was pounding, but not with anger, not yet. It was something colder, sharper, something that had been simmering under the surface for years and was now, finally, ready to boil. I stood up slowly, cleared my throat. They all turned, expecting me to offer a toast or a laugh or maybe a half-hearted jab. Instead, I picked up my keys, looked right at Uncle Jack, and said, "You'll all remember this day, just not for the reason you think." Then I walked out. No drama, no storming off. Just deliberate steps to the front door and a calm pull of it closing behind me. My car was still parked on the side. I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove off, not back home, but 15 minutes away to the nearby hotel where I'd originally booked a room, just in case. I sat there for a moment in the parking lot, hands gripping the wheel, staring straight ahead. Then I pulled out my phone. See, here's the thing about being the quiet one in the family. People forget you're there. They forget you're listening. And sometimes, they forget you exist until you remind them. and I had something to remind them with. Over the past 3 years, I'd built a side project that turned into a full-blown app. It was meant to help small businesses track their expenses and schedule invoices more easily. Nothing fancy, but it had traction, real users. And last quarter, a tech blog featured it, which led to a surge of downloads. I'd just closed a quiet $1.2 million acquisition deal with a mid-tier software firm out of Boston. No one in my family knew. Not because I was hiding it, but because they never bothered to ask. Until that night, it had been private. But after that dinner, I decided I was done playing the role of the overlooked one. I opened my email, attached a photo they'd all recognize, the family group photo taken earlier that afternoon, the one where I'd been standing in the back, half cropped out. Then I sent it, along with a caption and a little gift, to someone I knew would know exactly what to do with it. An hour later, their phones started blowing up. The first ping came during dessert. I wasn't there to witness it, of course, but I later got a detailed play-by-play from my cousin Lena, who always had a bit of a rebellious streak and thought the family hierarchy was a joke. Apparently, my Aunt Rachel had just started carving into the lemon meringue pie when her phone buzzed. Then Uncle Jack's. Then my dad's. Then my sister's. One by one, phones started dinging around the long, candlelit table like a malfunctioning car alarm symphony. Some of them groaned. A few glanced at their screens and chuckled. Others went quiet. Then Emily's phone buzzed. She looked at it and froze. "What is it?" someone asked. She didn't answer, just blinked. Then looked up, slowly, like someone coming to terms with an unexpected plot twist. Because there it was. A public post, front and center on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. A sleek, professional headshot of me, the one I'd been saving for a media kit, paired with the words, "After 3 years of development, my software company, Apex Loop, has officially been acquired for $1.2 million. This journey taught me the power of persistence, humility, and building quietly while others talk loudly. Special thanks to those who underestimated me. You were my best motivation." Below the caption were 2 links, one to the press release and one to the app's product page, which had already been flooded with new users, thanks to the sudden social media surge. And the kicker? I'd tagged nearly every relative who'd ever forgotten to include me in a family toast, including Emily. They didn't realize I'd created a custom notification for each one of them. I knew their handles. I'd quietly followed them for years. I knew how to find the pressure points without ever lifting a finger in anger. Lena told me that Uncle Jack's face turned a shade of pink she described as retired firetruck. He muttered something about fake news, but then Aunt Rachel pulled out her tablet to verify it. And there it was, my face, my name, and my quote. On multiple tech sites. In real time. Emily's smile had curdled into something sour. She tried to brush it off. Well, anyone can start an app. Doesn't mean it'll last. But she was visibly rattled. Because now, suddenly, the attention wasn't on her. And for someone who feeds on applause like air, that shift is a nightmare. Mom was quiet. She just stared at her screen like it had personally betrayed her. My dad tried to say something. Probably a dismissive joke, but even he knew the room had shifted. No one was clapping now. No one was raising their glass. And me? I was sitting on the balcony of my hotel room, sipping a cold beer, scrolling through the comments and congratulations pouring in from clients, colleagues, and friends. People who actually saw me, respected me. Lena messaged me that night. Just one sentence. "They're spiraling. I've never seen them this quiet." I didn't reply. Not yet. The next morning, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a group message from my mother. "Why didn't you tell us about this? We would have celebrated with you." I stared at it for a long time, then typed, "You had your chance to celebrate me. Last night proved why I never expected you to." A few minutes later, Emily sent a message too. Just a single emoji. No words. Just that. As if pretending surprise would somehow rewrite years of smug comments, eye rolls, and stolen credit. I didn't reply to her either. Instead, I got dressed, packed up my things, and checked out. I drove past the lake house on the way out of town, just slow enough to catch a glimpse of the breakfast table through the front window. Everyone was there, except now the vibe had shifted. No laughter. No clinking glasses. Just silence and awkward glances. It's funny how quickly people remember you exist when your name starts trending. By the time I got back to the city, my inbox was overflowing. A couple of old professors, a recruiter or two, Even a message from someone at Forbes asking if I'd be open to a short interview. Apparently, my quote had hit a nerve. People were sharing it, quoting it, debating it. But what really got me was the message from Lena a few hours later. Uncle Jack tried to make a toast at brunch. Said something like, "We're proud of both our kids, Emily and Ryan." Dad coughed so hard he almost dropped his fork. The silence afterward was unbearable. I had to leave the table just to laugh. I smiled. I hadn't gone to the reunion for revenge. Not really. But when the people who should have lifted you up spend decades looking down on you, sometimes the best way to respond is by succeeding so loudly they can't pretend not to hear it. And I wasn't done yet. Because the real surprise hadn't even landed. They thought the press release was the mic drop. They hadn't seen what I'd really planned, and that was set to go live Monday morning. And when it did, let's just say, no one at that reunion was going to forget my name again. Monday morning arrived crisp and quiet, the kind of summer day where even the breeze feels like it's holding its breath. I was already up by 6, seated at my apartment desk with a steaming mug of coffee and a notification dashboard open across 2 monitors. My fingers hovered over the refresh button like a conductor waiting for the first note of an orchestra. Because this next part, it wasn't just a passive flex. It was strategic. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about control. About choosing when, where, and how they saw me. For once, I wasn't the silent one waiting for scraps of attention. I was the one who decided what happened next. At exactly 7 a.m. Eastern, the scheduled announcement dropped. I'd bought a full-page digital ad placement on the homepage of one of the most-read business newsletters in the country. Right beneath the day's top headlines, in clean, black text on a white background, it read, "From overlooked to acquired. What it's like to be ignored by your own family until you're suddenly worth mentioning." Below it was a quote pulled straight from my own journal, and now my official statement to the press. They never asked what I was building, but they sure noticed when someone else wanted to buy it. Ryan Caldwell, founder of Apex Loop. And under that, a hyperlink titled, "Read the full story here." The link led to a blog post I'd spent the past 3 days polishing, one part founder's story, one part personal memoir. It wasn't bitter. I didn't name names. But I did talk about growing up in a family where success was loud and performative, where recognition was currency and silence meant irrelevance. I talked about feeling like a ghost at the dinner table, about choosing to build in silence, about the moment I decided I didn't need their validation to feel valuable. But there was one section, toward the end, that I knew would land like a punch to the gut for everyone at that reunion. Last weekend, I was at a family event. No one asked what I was doing with my life. No one even mentioned my name in a toast. I walked out that night and scheduled this post. Not to prove a point, but to remind myself, and maybe others, that sometimes the best applause is the kind you give yourself when no one else is watching. Within the hour, it had over 200 shares. LinkedIn was lighting up. Twitter threads began forming. One VC reposted it with the caption, "A must-read for every underestimated founder," or black sheep. But the real fireworks began around 9 a.m., just as my family was waking up and checking their phones. I got the first text from Mom. "Ryan, why would you post something like that? Everyone's talking. It makes the whole family sound awful. No congratulations. No, I had no idea you were doing so well. Just damage control." 5 minutes later, a text from my dad. "Maybe don't air private stuff online. You're better than that." That one made me laugh out loud. Private stuff? He had no problem making me feel invisible in public for years. But now that the narrative wasn't in his control, it was suddenly private. Then came the kicker, a call from Emily. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I ignored it. On the third try, she left a message. I listened, earbuds in, watching my analytics tick up by the second. "Hey, Ryan. Look, I didn't mean for that toast to hurt you. You know how Uncle Jack is, and I didn't even know he was going to say that. I swear. Can we talk? Please?" Everyone's just shaken up. Call me. Shaken up. That's what they were. Because the version of me they'd conveniently boxed up, the quiet, forgettable, tech-obsessed sibling, had stepped out of the shadows and rewritten the narrative. And not just with a flashy headline or a one-time check, but with a voice. A public one. By noon, the blog post had been picked up by 2 online business mags. My inbox was overflowing with collaboration offers, speaking invites, podcast requests. I wasn't just trending. I was visible. And not because of anything Emily or Uncle Jack said, but because I decided it was time. Still, part of me wondered if that would be the end of it. A few texts, a couple of awkward emails, a few relatives quietly unfollowing me, pretending they hadn't been blindsided. Then, around 3:15 p.m., I got the alert. An anonymous email sent through the contact form on my company's website. It read, "You think you're better than everyone now? Just remember, we know who you really are. Don't forget where you came from." A concerned family member. No name. No clue who sent it. But the passive-aggressive guilt? That was all too familiar. I stared at the message for a while. Not because it rattled me, but because it confirmed what I already knew. I'd finally done something they couldn't ignore. And it made them uncomfortable. Good. Because that email wasn't a threat. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't invisible anymore. And I hadn't even revealed the biggest twist yet, the part I'd been holding on to for months. The thing that, once public, would make the family really squirm. The part that involved a name, one they all knew, being quietly removed from something they thought they'd always be part of. It went live on a Thursday. Not a flashy day. No holiday. No significance. Just a regular, forgettable Thursday morning. The kind of day that people scroll past without thinking. And that was the point. I didn't want spectacle this time. I wanted precision. The final twist had been in motion for months, long before the family reunion, long before I even finalized the acquisition deal. I hadn't told anyone. Not my closest friends. Not even my legal team until the paperwork was halfway done. Because the truth was, I'd been planning it since the day I realized that no matter what I built, no matter how far I climbed, my family would always see me as background noise to the Emily show. See, my late grandfather, the only person in my entire family who ever saw me for who I was, had set up a family trust fund years ago. Nothing extravagant, but enough to give each grandchild a solid head start. $50,000 in a growth fund, payable at 30, as long as you didn't drop out of school or end up with a criminal record. Typical responsible adult guardrails. I didn't even touch mine when I turned 30. I was already doing fine by then. But Emily? She cashed hers the day she was eligible and posted a boomerang on Instagram of her celebration brunch with the caption, "Thanks, Gramps." #blessed. My grandfather also owned the old Caldwell Lake house. It wasn't massive, but it sat on some prime real estate, and the surrounding town had slowly become a luxury hotspot. The property had sentimental value to everyone in the family, holidays, birthdays, even 2 weddings had happened there. But when Grandpa passed, he left the house in a complicated shared ownership arrangement between his children, meaning my mom, my 2 aunts, and my Uncle Jack. That arrangement, predictably, led to arguments, maintenance fees, scheduling fights. One uncle didn't want to pay taxes, one aunt wanted to Airbnb it. My mom thought it should stay in the family. So it sat there, aging, empty. Then 2 years ago, I made a silent offer to each of them, in private. I bought out their shares of the property, one by one. Market value, no tricks. They were happy to be rid of the burden, and I wrapped each transaction in NDAs so none of them could warn the others or inflate the price. It took me 11 months, but eventually, I owned 100% of the Caldwell Lake house. And then, I transferred the deed. Not to Emily, not to the family, but to a scholarship foundation I created in my grandfather's name, the Henry Caldwell Initiative for Overlooked Youth in Tech. The house would be renovated, refitted, and used as a retreat and summer program for underprivileged kids interested in software, coding, and design. It would host workshops, fund education grants, serve as a place where quiet kids, like I once was, could feel seen. The trust fund Grandpa left me? I'd never touched it. So I put every cent into the foundation, along with a portion of the money from the Apex Loop acquisition, all under his name. And on that forgettable Thursday morning, the press release went out. Simple, elegant, and final. Tech entrepreneur donates family lake house to fund coding retreats for underprivileged youth, honoring the grandfather who believed in him when no one else did. It made local news first, then tech blogs, then national coverage. Forbes ran it under the headline, "The founder who bought his childhood legacy and gave it away." I watched the story spread like ink through water, and I didn't need to wait long. The group chat with my immediate family, which I'd muted for years, exploded. Mom's messages came in one after the other. "Ryan, what did you do? You gave the lake house away? Without asking us." This isn't what your grandfather would have wanted. That last one made me actually snort. My Aunt Diane chimed in next. You tricked us. You lied. We thought you were just buying it as a rental property. We trusted you. Then came Uncle Jack. You ungrateful brat. We had plans for that house. That was supposed to be for the family. You blindsided us. Emily sent a message too. Just 2 words. Why, Ryan? For a moment, I almost typed something back. Some clever retort. Some stinging line about how it felt to be erased at every family gathering while they smiled and passed over my seat like I was a placeholder. But instead, I posted a final message in the chat. Just 1 paragraph. You all toasted to the person you thought mattered. You celebrated the image you liked best. And for years, I watched and said nothing. Grandpa was the only one who saw me for who I was. This house was his legacy. And now, it's helping kids he would have loved. The kind who get ignored at dinner tables like yours. You didn't lose the house. You lost your claim to it the moment you made it clear that legacy only mattered when it had your name on it. Then I left the chat. Later that week, I got an email from a girl named Vanessa. She was 16, from Newark, and had just been accepted into the inaugural summer cohort for the Caldwell Initiative. Her message was short, a little awkward, but genuine. I read about what you did. I never thought someone like me could learn to code. My mom cried when I told her I got in. So, thank you. I won't waste it. I read that email 3 times. It hit deeper than any toast, any empty clap, any Facebook comment ever had. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. Not for what I'd proven, but for what I'd chosen. A month passed. Then 2. The reunion became just another awkward memory, except now, no one could pretend they hadn't noticed me. I didn't attend the follow-up family Zoom calls. I didn't answer the birthday wishes that suddenly felt performative. And I didn't need to, because I'd moved on. I wasn't the background anymore. I was the one who turned being overlooked into impact. I was the one who left the table and built a better one. One where every seat matters. And that was the toast I gave myself.